The Michelin name is synonymous with quality around the world, yet many who appreciate the performance of numerous Michelin products are unaware that the company's first tire product was a bicycle tire in 1891, when the Michelin brothers patented the first detachable bicycle bead tire. To this day, Michelin continues to innovate and produce world-class products for road bicycles, mountain bikes, and specifically designed products for e-mountain bikes, like the Michelin E-Wild tire. It's the tire of choice for my team, the Impact Results EMTB team that's competing in the 2021 EMTB GNCC National Championship. This partnership will enable the team and its riders to showcase the performance, versatility, and durability of the Michelin E-Wild tires during our efforts to defend and pursue even more championships. Also for 2021, Michelin is introducing many exciting new products like the Michelin Force AM2 tire and the Michelin Wild AM2 tire designed for a variety of mountain bike terrains, as well as, this one I'm excited about, the Michelin Pilot Sx and the Michelin Pilot Sx slick tire specifically for world-class level BMX racers like Connor Fields, even Darkside, or myself. Follow at Michelin Bicycle on Instagram or learn more about their extensive range of bicycle products by checking out their website or obviously engaging with them on social. Again, it's at Michelin Bicycle on Instagram.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. We've got a special one for you today, somebody I'm excited to bring to you. Before we dive in, I want to tell you about RacerX's latest promotion. If you're watching on the broadcast, you can see I'm holding up this sweet sticker sheet. The 16-year-old version of me would have loved this. So if you've got a kid or you're just into decaling up everything possible, between now and I believe the promotion ends May 6th, if you subscribe or renew to RacerX, you can use my link. It's racerxonline.com/moto marketing. You're going to get one of these sent to your house. Yeah, pretty cool little promotion. I'm excited for the promotion to be over so that I can actually use these on something that I would like. So go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing, subscribe or renew today. All right, so I held out for the first however many years old Pulp MX fantasy is. I just started playing this year, and I obviously listen to Pulp Fantasy. I try to learn what I can from Paul Parabinos and Steve and those guys, but I found myself kind of looking for more information. So I got on YouTube, and the first person that popped up was our guest today, Donnie from RotoMoto, and he's producing really, really solid content that nobody else is really producing. Beyond Steve and his team, nobody outside of the ownership of the game is creating content at scale. But Donnie at RotoMoto has done a phenomenal job of not just creating content, but really deep diving into strategy and tactic and just inside information as much as he can provide to his followers. So I wanted to have him on today just to talk about what he's built, the game. I think it's something that the sport of motocross needs, and Supercross. It's made watching the races that much more fun, and we're going to dive into it today. So Donnie, man, I appreciate you being on the show. We've chatted for a little while on Twitter and Instagram, and finally we're able to lock our schedules down and have you on. So welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
What's okay? So I mean, let's just go back to the beginning. Have you played Pulp for the entire time it's been, a game, or were you new to it? When did you get into playing fantasy motocross?
Yeah, I've played since the beginning. I'm a big fantasy sport guy in general. I've run fantasy baseball and football league since I was like a teenager. And when me and my best friend kind of made a pact to watch every race every weekend. This was 2017. Like I wasn't out of the sport, but you kind of have that like lull, life happens, whatever. And we were like, let's watch the sport. And the Rocky Mountain was the only fantasy at the time. And we were like, oh my God, there's fantasy Supercross. And then we got into it and we're like, there's not a lot to this. It's still valid, but like, it's not a lot to it. We were bummed. And then the next year when I heard about Pulp and I was like, oh dude, this is going to be our thing. This is killer. So I've played since the first week, which was 2018. The first season was 2018, I believe.
So when did it come to you that, hey, I want to create some content about this? I'm into the game. I'm really deep diving into the data and the lap times and the previous performances and all the stuff that you offer. When did you decide to actually take that to the next level and create RotoMoto?
That's actually an accident. I last year, the beginning of 2020, I just was like, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel, and I didn't know what. It was just kind of not like a New Year's resolution. Those are kind of silly, but like going in, I was like, I want to make a channel this year. I want to do something, and then it was like January 3rd or 4th that I was trying to explain Pulp to a friend, and it's a little convoluted. It can be a little much for somebody that doesn't play fantasy sports. And I was like, is there a video of how to play this? And there's not. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make the video, and I need to, it's one of those where if you don't start, you'll never start. So it was like one of those where the video, I put a lot of effort into it, but I don't think it's that good. But I was like, here's the video. I put it up, and I was like, that way people can find this potentially forever.
Right.
But I didn't actually expect anybody to find it. Just if somebody searched it, it exists now. And then I think it was the next day, I think Marks retweeted it.
Yep.
And Pulp Show retweeted it. And then it was like instantly it had 100 views. And I'm like, that's not even a ton, but I didn't expect it to have any ever, really, outside of my buddy that I kind of made it for. And then I was like, well, now I'm going to have to actually do this. People are subscribing to the channel and following on Twitter. So I'm going to have to actually make the content. So then I think it was just A1. I was like, all right, I'll make a list of 5 guys to look at. And it went well. And then we just kind of upped it. And I think it was week 4, I did the cheat sheets. And then for outdoor, I started the Patreon. So then it just kind of like,
so this was 2020. So this was last season.
Correct. Yeah. 2020 was the first year. Yeah.
Man. So for it only being the second season of you doing this, like, I mean, your production is, just now, anybody watching, like you hands down win the award of the coolest set of any of our guests. It's you. I can tell you're just naturally talented at, that type of stuff, but you come off very calm and like it's not your first rodeo as far as doing this video type of content. Was there a learning curve to begin with, or was it something that you naturally just kind of, you turned the mic on and you had a lot to say that you've been wanting to say and you finally had that platform to do it? Walk me through that.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've been making content for a very long time. I was in a band 2009, and we used a website called Blog TV that's long been defunct. And if you're familiar with Twitch, it was kind of like the original Twitch. We didn't play video games, but it'd just be people with their webcam on, and they'd be talking, and people could chat, and you'd have a conversation back and forth. So, I've been doing it for technically a decade. And then I streamed on Twitch. I wouldn't call it a failed endeavor because I still was relatively successful, but I kind of took everything there that I failed on or things that didn't go my way, and I applied it to this. Like, I'm always a person that's like, okay, that didn't work, let's try this. And then once you figure it out, then when I started Roto, I already had a good base of things that I knew this worked, I knew that didn't. And then I saw things that were missing in the Moto community. And one of the big things is, like with the Pulp Show, really any of the major media guys, they don't have a lot of interaction with the people because that's hard. It's busy. They're busy guys. They have a lot going on, but I only have the fantasy, which is a pool of 10,000 people max. You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier to be like, to kind of make that community out of it. Yeah. But yeah, like I already had the camera, I already had the microphone, I already had most of the stuff in the background, I already had the lights. So when I made my first video, I already had all of this stuff in my office pretty much dialed in the way I wanted it. So
talk to me about just the community aspect of it, because something that I've been a fan of the sport, like super fan of the sport since I was, oh gosh, 11 or 12 years old. And this is the first year that I guess it was because of the pandemic in 2020. I was so excited for racing to come back that I wanted to be as engaged with it when it was here as possible. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I never use Twitter, but I found myself, I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump on, and as the race unfolds, I'm going to kind of follow. And I found myself jumping into a lot of conversations, and several of them were involved you. And I kind of discovered a whole side of Twitter that I didn't realize before, and I don't use it during the week, and I think a lot of the Moto community doesn't use it during the week, but it's as if I'm watching the race with a ton of friends that I don't really know, but we're all Moto fans, and as soon as something happens, whether it's Rutledge Wood says something silly or a block pass is made, it's on there in the next second, and then you all of a sudden have 10, 15, 20 people diving in on a conversation. Has that gotten you exposure? Because I'm having conversations with you a lot. I see you on there and being very, very active. What has Twitter done just for the growth of your personal community with RotoMoto?
It's been massive. Again, I mean, like you said, the community is something that a lot of people might not see that, especially not see that as value from like a business standpoint. But I mean, if you look at F1 Twitter, for example, like the teams are on it. They don't run it like Wendy's. They don't run it like that where they just make jokes all the time. They like legitimately have conversations with people back and forth.
Yeah.
And that was the one things I did right when I started was I would just literally search Pulp MX on Twitter. So I get every post of anybody that mentioned Pulp or anybody that tagged Steve, since his name is Pulp MX.
Yes.
And then find people that are asking, hey, should I pick so-and-so or so-and-so, whatever. And, Steve doesn't always have time to reply to all of those, but I do. So I kind of was like, hey, I think this is this. I think that's that. And I mean, like I can go over like my Twitter stats. It's insane the amount of impressions and things that I get from just simple interactions like that. It actually blew me away when I looked at it the other week where, like 500,000 people saw my tweets.
That's incredible.
And last month, 34,000 people clicked on my profile. And that's something that, wow. And that's free, like I didn't pay, like, how much it costs to get 34,000 people to click on your profile. Yeah. And if you're paying for ads, is insane.
Now, are you sitting there just watching the race and you're tweeting on your phone, or is it almost like, all right, I'm enjoying the race, but I'm also here to work, and like you've got it set up on your computer, you're there, and you find you can type faster on your laptop. Like what is kind of set that scene when you're watching a race and you're actually engaging on Twitter? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's definitely work first and enjoyment second at this point, which is always kind of a bummer once you make your your right. fun your work. But I actually have 3 monitors on a home desktop. 2 of them are vertical, one of them is horizontal. So I have monitors that are like massive, tall, and narrow that I can put the Pulp scores on, Twitter on, everything. So I have like multiple windows over here, and then I'm watching the race in the full screen.
That's right.
So that I don't even have to tab over. I don't have to do anything. I can literally just click and type without even minimizing the race.
That's awesome.
It's a really, really nice setup, especially when I'm crunching all the numbers and I can have, like so many things open at one time.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to dive into where this is going, where RotoMoto, the goal as far as where to take it. We'll dive in with Donnie when we come back. Fly Racing's 2021 line has been improved and expanded, offering the industry's widest range of moto and off-road products. Led by the revolutionary Formula helmet featuring Rheon technology, Fly Racing has taken big steps forward with the all-new Light Pant and Zone Pro goggle. It's going to debut this year at the Monster Energy Supercross by Justin Brayton and the Muck-Off Honda team. The Zone Pro goggle delivers premium performance from a brand you know and trust, fearless pursuit, Fly Racing. It's personally the gear that I wear. I've worn it Moto, BMX, mountain bike. I've worn it and repped it for years. In my opinion, it's the best. Be sure to check out their goggle, their helmet, and all their gear. Fly Racing. Hey, big shout out to our friends at FMF. Little D and the guys are always doing some pretty exciting things, not just with the performance products, but man, they've got the coolest apparel in the game, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to get that at a little bit of a discount. If you go to FMF and pick up any gear you'd like, hats, shirts, whatever it is, upon checkout, if you enter the code MMP30, MMP30, you can get 30% off. So MMP30, MP30 at checkout and get 30% off your order on FMF Apparel. All right, guys, welcome back. We have Donnie from RotoMoto. If you haven't checked his content out, first off, Donnie, where, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, where can people find your content if they're kind of looking for more in-depth information on fantasy?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram are both at RotoXMoto. YouTube is just RotoMoto. You can also go to rotomoto.co, and it has all of them on there. It's a very basic landing page kind of a website, cool. Just to be able to get to all of the places at once.
So walk me through where RotoMoto is right now. I mean, you're putting in a ton of effort, and you're doing a better job than some of the professional media outlets do on their content. Is this still a hobby that you're just like, yeah, it's a hobby, I want it to be a hobby and that's all it's going to be? Or is it something that you're trying to figure out how to turn into your full-time gig? Well, I mean, where is it right now, and what's the goal for it in the next, year to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for it to be a full-time gig. Like, that was not the intent on day one, but by the time it was rolling and I kind of was like, this could be something, like this is happening. I have a Patreon, and I have a lot of really cool people
Awesome.
that support financially that way, which is really cool. And I have merchandise, but other than that, I have no sponsors. I have no official ties to anybody. Somebody recently on one of my live shows was like, Steve needs to give you a raise. I'm like, he doesn't pay me at all. Like,
I've seen that a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't make a single official dollar from any of it.
Yeah.
I finally did get monetization on YouTube, so I get
Awesome.
like $3 for every 1,000 views is roughly what that translates to. So it's not much, but yeah, I mean, I definitely spend a lot of time on it, and I hope it can be something eventually. I just don't really know. It's hard. It's a hard step to be like,
Yeah.
let me make this the gig. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's a big step to make that a thing.
Well, I think it's pretty cool to see what you have been able to do and the quality of it for something that is just a side hustle right now. I mean, you do it, perfectly. I mean, I follow your stuff, Racer X's and Steve's, throughout the race day. So it's pretty incredible. One thing I did notice, and you'd mentioned it, t-shirts, and I guess it just kind of goes back to your skill set that you had previously coming into this. You don't just create shirts. If there's something funny that happens in a race, you've got a shirt that I can buy literally before the podium interviews are done on some of these races. Never change AMA, when all kinds of silly stuff happened on, I think it was the West Coast. Talk to me about that. Where did that come from? Did you just get the idea of, hey, I'm going to offer shirts, or was this like a planned aspect of the model when you were building this thing out?
This kind of goes back to, so my day job, I actually own my own business, and I make decals and, to a lesser extent, shirts that are focused at the like the car enthusiast.
Yep.
Like import cars primarily, not exclusively, but that's our clientele. And the one thing that was always kind of a bummer is that, I would make a design that I thought was the coolest design ever, and it wouldn't really sell. And then I'd make something that was just a meme, and we would sell a ton of them. And I would spend so much time designing really cool versions of our name and our logo and all this. And we'd sell a couple to our hardcores, but those don't appeal to the general fan.
Yeah.
So I kind of learned quickly on that I'm like, the things that hit hard is kind of that, like, when you're at the grocery store, you check out, you've got the convenience items, the gum and the candy and all that. You got to hit that stuff that people are like, oh, I want that. And they don't even have time to think about if they actually want it,
right,
or if they're going to want it by the time it shows up. Because by the time the shirt's made and shipped to them, it's been a week, and you know what I mean? The joke's kind of gone. So that was one. I think it was Bobby P. It was Bobby Piazza when he got with him in Oldenburg in the LCQ. And I just made a shirt that said "Justice for Bobby P." I didn't actually think we'd sell any of them. I made it just as a, here's a shirt, haha, funny, to get engagement. And I think we sold like 3 or 4. Most of them were to Bobby himself and his friends and family, but like it was still neat. But yeah, the Never Change AMA, it's one of those where we talked about it the week before on my live show, and then it happened again. There was another thing, and I was like, I slept on it. I got to make it now. I have to make it now. Yeah. So I had that up on the website within, I think 8 minutes of the thought. It's obviously a very basic design, but I don't think people mind it.
No, it's cool, and I'm curious. I mean, Mark's ordered a shirt, and I think it was the next week or 2 weeks later on the show, he had it on, and he talked about it. And that kind of made my evening when I saw that, because I know that you know this is a small thing and you're trying to grow it, and when you get anything on pulp, there's exposure there. Did you see any type of an uptick of people just out of curiosity looking at your site and being like, who the hell is this guy that Mark's was talking about? Did you sell more of the shirts? Did you see anything from that when they were mentioning you on pulp?
Yeah, I definitely got a few website views, a few extra followers on Twitter, Instagram. I think we sold 3, maybe 5 shirts
Yeah.
over the next 24 hours. Normally I pretty much sell only on race day. So being on a Tuesday, I was like, well, those are probably
those
from
are
people
from
watching the show.
yeah,
Like,
right. Yeah, that's
you know,
rad.
so yeah, I mean, it sold a little bit. All of the shirts are, they're directed garment. I don't do it. I don't lift
Right.
a finger. I make the design, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's not like a high profit margin, but
Sure.
it's low effort. So
No, that's
it works
cool.
out.
And I know it's something small, but it's cool to see, you know, being quick on your feet, and if something like that comes up, you have that design. It's pretty neat. Something that I've enjoyed, and I haven't been able to do it every race, but the ones that mainly if it's a weekend race, I'm able to do it. There's started to become this more and more people doing the race companions and watching the race with a group of people live, and I'm sure there's still more opportunity for people to jump in and do that, but you came out and did something that I haven't seen anybody do, and it was after the race. It's when, you know, like you're coming down off this high of what just happened, but I don't have anybody to talk to, and my wife's not really into it, and she's probably asleep at that point, but then you've got this show, this live YouTube show that I can jump on, and you're literally sitting where you're at right now, and there's tons of people in the comments, and I've been on there before, like 45 minutes, just going back and forth with you and people in the comments, like I have a group of friends just talking about the race and bench racing about it. Talk to me about that. I'm just curious where that came from and what you've seen from it, because I think that's probably, in my opinion, the coolest thing that you're doing right now, because I can actually engage with you and so many people live.
Yeah, well, that was the biggest gap that I found. And the first time I did it was a real struggle, because so many of the people in the moto community are used to just watching people talk to each other and not actually engage with chat. Like the tweet it Travis segment is the only part that you actually, and even then that's on a way delay and you don't get to do it. And that comes from kind of my streaming background, where I'm like, nobody's utilizing this, you know, this avenue of like streaming directly to the people and talking to them and asking them how they feel. And then, you know, and like last night about the penalties with McAdoo and Anderson and Hartrap, like being able to hash that out in real time, rather than like Twitter, you tweet it and then they tweet back and then it's going to be 10 more minutes and you do it. It's like, it's an immediate thing, and just nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite thing too. I don't even remember how I had the idea. We did a live show before the race for the final round at Salt Lake, where I just kind of talked about fantasy picks, and that was fine, but it just felt a little, I don't know, a little rushed. I'm already very busy, like leading up to the race.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I was like, it'd be cool, because I feel like you described, the race is over and you have this energy and you don't have anywhere to put it.
Right.
And about as soon as the race is over, Twitter kind of dries up, the Pulp chat dries up on the actual Pulp Fantasy website, like everything kind of dries up. And I'm like, I know people feel like I feel, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because me and my buddies, the race would be over and we'd sit in the living room and talk for an hour. So
yeah.
And then now it's getting to a point where it's hard to shut it down. I tried to be like, we'll do it for an hour. And I think last night we went till like 12:30 a.m., you know, and I'm like, guys, I gotta go. Like, I'm so hungry. You guys have no idea.
No, that's awesome. So on average, how many people generally are, you know, at its peak in one of those live chat rooms with you?
On a Saturday, probably 60, 70.
Wow.
Last night was more like 40, 50.
Yeah.
It usually
crazy,
peaks
though.
about a half an hour after it starts.
Yeah.
Is probably when there's the most people, and then people probably start getting ready to go to bed.
Have you had conversations at all with Steve as far as being able to do more with Pulp or creating content with him? I know you and Mark's talk a lot. Like I've seen him in that chat. So I'm curious, have you considered that? Is there not interest from their end? What's that kind of look like?
It's hard to say. I actually met up with Steve at Indy 1. I didn't get press because obviously not a lot of people could get press. I got it last year and the race was canceled, and I was really bummed because then this year they were like, yeah, no chance. Sorry, we have like 10 passes. And I'm like, yeah, fair. I get you. But he came down into like the, general admission area, which he hates to do. So I was very flattered. And talked about it. And I just kind of, said, I was like, I want to do something. And he was like, yeah, email me and we'll talk. And I just haven't. I've just been really busy, personal life, and in addition to just running this every week.
Yeah, that's cool though that he is showing that interest. What I've learned about him is he's got this on-camera character that it's not really him. It's definitely played up. He's not an ass. He comes off as jokingly as an ass on the show, but what I've realized, and I know Weege better than I know Steve, and I've gotten to know JT and all these guys that also can attest to this. Steve is a good dude. So it's cool to see that he has recognized somebody that's jumped on his baby and tried to do something cool with it. So I would love to see you guys do more. I mean, your content is really good, and just your on camera presence. I mean, you're super professional about it. I mean, there are other shows out there where it's, Timmy in his basement trying to create something, but it's very amateurish. And your stuff is really, really quality, and I'd love to see it grow. What do you think? What's the future of fantasy in this sport? I feel like it took hockey and baseball and football just to a completely different level. I know that's kind of a hard question to answer, but what do you see fantasy doing as a whole for this sport? And I'm talking pulp fantasy. The Rocky Mountain ATV stuff is, I don't know what your opinion is on that, but it really doesn't. I really have an interest in picking 1 through 5. Paul, there's way more gamesmanship to it. Mm-hmm. What do you think that looks like for the future of the sport?
I think it's going to grow the sport immensely. I think that people are sleeping on it. That was like I said, the one way I used to have a homebrew league where we would draft riders, and have them for the whole season, more like fantasy football would go. And I had an open slot, and I had a friend who, watched the race with us kind of, but doesn't really follow. And I was like, hey, do you want in? And he immediately went from a casual fan to a hardcore fan, because now he needed to know and he needed to pay attention who's in 11th.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I actually had my wife start playing this year as a control group, where I was like, I'm not going to give you any hints, but I want you to just use the content that I give and see how you do as somebody that knows nothing in the sport, but just uses my content. How well will you do? And now she watches the races more than ever. She knows everybody's names. Yeah. And I think that this is going to grow the sport if it's done right. Right. And the Rocky Mountain is just, I don't want to say there's no thinking to it. You're just, it takes about 30 seconds, which is what they designed it as, to be like, people show up to the stadium. Maybe they're a Monster Jam people and they show up to Supercross for some reason, and they give them this little game to give them, hey, pick these 5 guys and look for them, kind of thing. Yeah. Denny Stevenson's Moto Extreme 360 Fantasy, which is a really long name.
Talk to me about that. I've seen him tweeting, and honestly, everything he tweets confuses the shit out of me. So is that another fantasy league? What is that? Okay.
Yes. And I really like it. And I think that it has a lot of potential if he can really fine tune it and also work on the marketing aspect of it a little bit, because instead of having to worry about handicaps and this and that, it's a salary based game. You got $4 million to make your pick. Cooper Webb costs $900,000. So that's a big bit chunk of your budget. And you just score the points that they score. And then he has some riders highlighted in red. And if they make the top 10, they get 10 bonus points. So you're not even worried about handicap. You're just saying, do I think this person is worth the price or not?
So does he have it built out on, is it a platform like Pulp MX, or is it kind of like a small group of dudes that you pretty much are in an Excel spreadsheet?
No, it's a full-blown website with standings and all that stuff. It's not as clean looking as Pulp. I think that he's got like 350 or 400 players this season that paid to play. And it gives a bike away too. 400 people in there, and somebody wins a CRF 250.
No shit. I need to get on that. So that's interesting to me, because I think, this wasn't a show to promote Steve's fantasy league, but that's kind of the only one that's out there, because I don't consider Rocky Mountain ATV's fantasy something that really anybody's that interested in. But I didn't realize that this other league was out there. I'd love to see him do a better job of promoting it, because for me, like, I'm into Pulp and I love the handicap thing. I understand it now, but I also think it'd be fun to do more of a salary cap based league. So that's interesting. And what you said about your wife, the same has been true for my wife as well, to where she's not playing, but she sees me with my computer open. And in race number 1, she was asking questions, and I was explaining to her, like, hey, I need these guys to get in. These are the top guys. This guy, the chances of him making the main slim, but if he does, I was explaining I want to get a lot of points. And she knows the names now for the first time ever, and she's watching, and she's like, hey, your guy's in 5th. I do think it's super intriguing from that standpoint, and I would love to see how that's going to grow the sport. Like, is it literally just a matter of, well, more dudes are getting their girlfriends and their wives to play, or is there something more to it, to where it's my business partner's over one weekend, he sees it, and then is intrigued and jumps in and plays, and now he's a fan. It's intriguing, and I wonder if there's ever going to be a money aspect of it, because that is obviously why all the other sports fantasies are as big as they are. You can gamble if you want, and do you see that ever becoming a thing in this sport with fantasy?
I don't think it'll ever be that big, but there's no reason that it shouldn't be. I just think that Moto, because even NASCAR fantasy is relatively large. I just don't, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little different. I don't know why it doesn't hit, but if you look at football, how many people play fantasy football that don't even care about football?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
for sure.
So if we could just get people, I think we need to target not even just motorsports people. I think that's where NBC kind of gets it wrong. It feels like they try too hard to be like, well, if you like NASCAR, you like Supercross. And I'm like, if you like anything, you could like Supercross.
Yeah,
it's a gnarly, cool sport. Not many sports is the actual main event 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Like baseball, it's 3 hours. You can watch Supercross for 20 minutes and get everything you need out of it. So
it's a great point. We had Daniel Blair on yesterday. I think he's going to be this week's episode, which I believe, will be next week. But Daniel and I were talking about that as far as growth of the sport and where it should come from. And I do think if it's done right, I think fantasy, whether it's Pulp or Danny Stevenson's, whatever, I think it can be leveraged to get somebody hooked, because I held out for a very long time because I'm that guy. I don't like to watch the races with my friends. I don't want to be bothered. I want to watch it. Don't talk. I'm into it. I looked at fantasy is a distraction, and really what happened, I would listen to the podcast because I like to learn about the other guys, but I'd never play. And what I learned was it wasn't a distraction. I'm that much more into it. I never watched time qualifying until this year, and now if it's a Supercross day, shit's getting real from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 11 o'clock at night, because I'm watching all of it. And it's interesting how I thought I was as big a fan as you could be. Pulp the fantasy has made me an even bigger fan of the sport, so it's pretty unique.
Absolutely.
Man, I want to be respectful of your time. It's genuinely, I enjoy your content. This is the first time we have spoken, not through Twitter or Instagram, but I consider you one of my Supercross friends that I watch these races with and engage with. It's interesting what you've built, because I know that you've got all these people that feel the same way, that are engaging with you. I'd love to see it grow. I'd love for people listening to this, if they haven't checked your content out, check it out. It's quality stuff. You do a really good job. You're consistent with it. It's there when I expect it to be there, and it's awesome to see what you've done, man. So I appreciate you coming on and telling us about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Well, we will see you. We'll see you Saturday on Twitter and in the chat. And
absolutely.
Again, tell everybody where they can find you and your information if they missed it the first time.
Absolutely. On Twitter and Instagram, it's RotoMoto. On YouTube, it's just search RotoMoto. It'll pop right up.
Awesome. And again, if you guys haven't subscribed, again, you can get this awesome limited edition sticker sheet for renewing or subscribing. Use my link, racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.